All right, so let me tell you a little bit more about a pec tear, different types of approaches, what happens when you don't have that shortened phase, and immediate repair and such as myself. So essentially, after you tear your pec, most surgeons want to get in there and they want to repair it within 6 weeks. And if they don't really get in there within 6 weeks, what they say is they feel so much of the muscle and tendon is pulling and pulling away that they're going to be unable to pull it back to the bone and sew it back and suture it back to the bone as a primary repair or a direct repair. You'll hear either one of those terms, right? Now, depending on the surgeon you see or whom you listen to, I have the second surgeon I went to, who is a renowned pec surgeon. He said really, he's been able to repair some that are even within a year, right? They don't really, and at the time, I think I went to him the second time, it was like a year and a half. And he was saying, he's even been able to, if he really tugs on it and such, get it back even within 2 years. It really just depends on how much it's retracted and such. So if you're at 6 weeks or 7 weeks and you're curious, there are some surgeons who absolutely can do this and are trained well, and I'm sure you can find a host of them. If not, I'd be happy to share who's doing mine. But essentially, if so much time has been, has gone on, and the pec retracts so much. So if you're wondering what's happening, as you can imagine, a muscle comes here to here. When you contract, it pulls this way. Well, when it relaxes, it like springs back, okay? But because it's no longer attached, it has nothing like countering it. So it's just going to keep pulling, right? And eventually it just shortens there because there's no way to stretch it. Like you can't put your arm into a position to stretch it because there's no attachment. So, and that's actually one of the biggest reasons why I opted to go in and have this pec repair done, because I noticed I was getting a lot of cramping. If I was trying to do anything like opening jars or like patting out hamburgers, or just if I had to hold something and squeeze tight and like drill something in, I would just get an insane Charlie horse that there was absolutely no way to undo. It just sort of had to deal with it until it let go, and it kind of got annoying. So I was like, what, I'm kind of tired of this. Let's get this repaired. So then comes to the conclusion, if you're like me and you're in that boat, how do they repair something if it's gone so far? And I want to kind of show you what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up, anatomy app that we use a lot here in the clinic. Right? So your pec here, right? I'm going to demonstrate on my left because this is what happened to me. Right? And I'm going to try to pull away some of these muscles and such. So your pec here, right? I'm going to use the pen. Is this muscle here, right? So we have this here. And now typically you can change that muscle into two fibers, where you can change it here, and this top portion here being your clavicular head, and this portion here being your sternal head. Now depending on, if you talk to an anatomist or whatnot, you may actually see that they'll break these fibers in lower here, known as your oblique or your abdominal head. Some people will put this all together as one. It really doesn't matter, how you want to look at it, but it's just kind of like, how some people look at it. Now, why that's important, okay, let me get rid of all those for a minute. Okay, so we're going to come in here, and I'm going to hide the anterior delt, okay? And so right here, what we have is we can see the pec right here, okay? So we can see the pec, and one thing I want you to note is you can see the fibers, how they sort of cross over each other like this, okay? So if we draw on here for a minute, you can see that the clavicular head, right, kind of comes here like this. And the sternal head will come in here, and we'll do a different color. As it's coming here, right, and it's coming underneath, you can see that this is the sternal head. Well, what's happening is this sternal head and the clavicular head, they're flossed over like this, right? So it's over on top of each other and kind of flosses into one. Well, in my case, what happened, right, is this lower portion, what we're thinking is kind of like right in here, a piece of it here got ripped off, okay? And it came this way. The clavicular head is still there, right? So comes the question of like, well, what's going to happen? And this is a question I asked them. I was like, well, are you going to go in and physically cut out, the clavicular head? Are you going to just like excise and cut the remaining part of all of the heads and then try to pierce them together and pull them together? And the one guy was like, we don't really know until we go in there. And that was actually a big fear for me because I don't want to do that. I was like, if I have healthy, good tendon and muscle in there, like I don't want to, disrupt that just for a little part that, essentially gave up, right? So when a muscle tears, right, and the tendon, like on the new MRI, shows that it's essentially about there. Well, they need to get it to come from here all the way to here, right? And they don't have, right, they're not going to be able to pull it, okay? They're not going to be able to pull it that far, okay? You might be able to pull it a little bit, maybe to here, I'm guesstimating. But you're not going to be able to pull it all the way, okay? So, I can't have my arm to where I can't, pull it back at all, right? So they have to do what's known as bridge the gap. And there's a couple ways you can do it. Now, generally, as you can see, if we kind of, let's get rid of this drawing in here, okay? If we come in here, can you see how like small this tendon is? It's really small. It's not big at all. It has a very small footprint. Okay? So what they're needing to do is actually come in, and we need to bridge that gap. And there's two ways that you can see some people will bridge the gap. Number one, if you're using this like whole entire footprint, right, that, a couple, centimeters or so, then they will use an Achilles allograft, right? Meaning a cadaver's Achilles. And why using that? Because Achilles is really strong, and if they kind of, they'll floss one tip over on top of it, and then they'll floss it underneath. So the pec will be kind of in between as like a sandwich, if you will. And they're going to pull that over and then suture it to the bone, which is just on the outside of the biceps here. If you can see right here, we have the biceps. You see how it's like just on the outside of it. Now we need to make sure that they need to make sure, of course, that they're not disrupting it. Right, so they're going to put it on just on the outside of it. And in my case, we don't know yet, actually, if they're going to end up using a semitendinosus, which is one of your hamstrings, allograft, or if they're going to do an Achilles. Now, the way he explained it to me is there's two ways they can do it. If it's really big, really wide, they're going to use an Achilles and sandwich it over like this. If it's smaller, in the case where they think mine is right now, they're going to use a semitendinosus graft, and they're going to weave it in between the muscle and then try to pull that towards the side of the humerus, the side of the arm, and then try to sew it back. Now the cool thing is, we've seen is it can make a continuous tendon as if the body's going to repair it as a whole. So if you're unfamiliar with how they do surgeries, it's really fascinating. But essentially what they're going to do is they're going to open this up, right? And they would come right to this outer portion, okay, of this here, and they're going to actually burrow it, or they're going to like essentially scrape out the top layer, okay? And they're going to do that because the bone is where you make blood, and the blood is where all the healing properties are. So they're going to do that to create an inflammatory cascade, so the body's laying down new tissue and the body's starting to heal that tissue. And then they're going to drill probably 3 anchors into this area, and essentially by doing that, the body's going to throw more blood at that area. We're going to have more of an inflammatory cascade, so it's going to lay down new tissue. And eventually, that tissue will become continuous with the rest of the pec, and it'll be one uniform pec. So it's going to be, it's really exciting how they're able to do that. But that's essentially what they're going to do. Now, they can do one of those two things, right? They can use an Achilles allograft or a cadaver or a semitendinosus graft. In my case, we still don't know. They're going to have both options available. Right now, they're thinking it's going to be more of the semitendinosus one just because so much of the pec is still there. But we don't know. We're going to find out here in a couple days. I'm a little nervous and anxious about it, but I think I'm trying to have the best outlook as possible. But the really cool thing is, if you look at long-term studies and such, people that have had it done, even I've seen a couple reports where somebody had it done even 15 years later. You'll see a lot of people that will talk about a success rate of 90%, or sorry, not a success rate, a strength rate, where they're able to almost achieve 90% of strength relative to the other limb, right? I've actually seen one or a couple times where somebody was actually able to achieve even more than they were in the non-affected arm. So it's really cool. If I had to pinpoint where I'm at right now, I would say I'm maybe 60%. Okay. I mean, yes, I have the range. I have a little bit of strength. I can hold my own, if you will, but I can't really push myself. I can't do a push-up. I can hold myself in a push-up position or plank position, but I can't actually do the push-up component. So that and these are all like added things of what's building me up to take it. But the fact that they're going to be able to come in and really like I guess bridge that gap, it's kind of cool. I think some people aren't aware of it. Um, uh, the ability to do so, and it's really cool what some of these surgeons are able to do. So I give the utmost respect to them, and I'm excited. I hope I have I'm on the mend here in the next few days. But I'll keep you guys posted. I plan to talk a little bit more about what the overall cost was, what the experience was like. I'm going to try to document my process as best as I can. If anybody's watching along as we go, you have any questions or anything you want me to kind of cover, don't hesitate. Leave a comment, reach out to me. You can. Best way to reach out is either leaving a comment if it's on on YouTube, or reaching out via Instagram. Those are the ones that I check the most. So I'll keep you guys informed, and I'll see you in the next video.